everyone, and welcome back to Lady Jane Books. Today I'm doing my 2020 wrap-up and unhaul with me. It has been such a crazy year. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait for 2020 to end. But oddly enough, I had a great reading year, so I feel like I can't complain too much. So I thought today I would give you a look at all the books that I read this year. Well, I decided I would also talk about which books I'm going to unhaul from 2020. But before we begin, it has been brought to my attention that Lady Jane Books now has over 110 subscribers. What? That is the best way that I could have ended 2020. So now we must commence with the sacred jazz hands dance.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11! Woo!
It's just gonna get way more ridiculous as time goes on. But in all honesty, I am so thankful to each and every one of you. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a very happy and healthy new year. So let's dive in with the wrap-up and unhaul. The first book I read in 2020 was The Chalkman by C.J. Tudor. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. This is a small-town murder mystery that is set in the UK. While this boy is growing up in his small town, a gruesome murder of a young girl takes place and her body is dumped in the woods. As he grows up, he ponders the mystery of this young girl and what happened to her. This was so good. I thought this was a very strong way to start 2020. It was a quick read. It was very fast-paced, engaging. It felt like a Stephen King novel and gave me a lot of It vibe. The twist at the end is just mind-blowing. I love it. But now that I know what that twist is, I don't see myself rereading this, so I am going to make this the first unhaul of 2020. The second book that I read in 2020 was Entwined by Heather Dixon. I rated this one 3 out of 5 stars. This is a young adult novel that is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. Now, I was not aware of the story of the 12 Dancing Princesses, so I really went into this book kind of blindly. But this one was just okay, in my opinion. I really honestly bought it for the cover. I mean, look at this cover. Look how gorgeous this is. The problem for me is that this cover was about the best part of this book. I felt like some parts really dragged on and I wasn't that engaged. And one thing I really liked about this book was that the character of the keeper was so creepy. He was so creepy and dark and twisted and mysterious. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of the book, but that's about it. I think this book is beautiful. Look at it. It's just gorgeous. But as we all know in BookTube, we cannot just keep a book because it has a pretty cover if we didn't enjoy it. So for that reason, I am making this the second book that I am unhauling in 2020. The third book that I read in 2020 was Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. I rated this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This is technically a domestic thriller that is also based in the UK. This story is about a couple who is seemingly perfect. The wife is beautiful, thin, and has every luxury in the world. The husband is handsome, rich, and adoring of his wife. They are the envy of everyone. But behind closed doors is all what they seem. I absolutely loved this book. This book was a little slow at the beginning. It took a little bit of build-up, to be honest. So I wasn't quite sure when I started it. But when the twist and everything changed, it was so fascinating. This novel was one of the most satisfying endings that I have ever read. I absolutely loved it. I was cheering. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm afraid that this is another case where I know the ending, I know the twist, and so therefore I may not read it again. So I have to say that I am also going to be unhauling Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. The fourth book that I read in 2020 was The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. I rated this a 2 out of 5 stars. This book is about a family who lives in a rural small town. And within this town, there are rumors of sleepers. Sleepers are the undead. But all that's just small town rumor, right? I had started this twice and I DNF'd it twice, and I should have taken that as a sign that this book and Lady Jane were not meant to be friends. But I didn't. I persevered and did not win out on this one. I have talked about this extensively on my channel. I don't think this was a very good book. The plot and characters were really reminiscent of books that I've read before, and quite frankly, better books that I've read before. So because of this, I will sadly be unhauling The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. Oops. The next book that I read in 2020 was The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I rated this 3 out of 5 stars. This one is also a family thriller that's supposed to be about a cult, suicide, pact, all this crazy stuff. And when I read the description, it sounded so good and thrilling. But unfortunately, The Family Upstairs was a little bit of a letdown. It just was not as thrilling as I thought it was. And although there were some aspects that I really liked, I felt like they weren't enough to bring it up into good territory. However, now I'm intrigued by Lisa Jewell's work and will definitely be reading more of her books in the new year. The sixth book that I read in 2020 was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I rated this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I read this for part of Jade the Libra's book club, and it was a new release when we started reading it, and it was so good. Oh my goodness. This follows a girl whose family bought a haunted house and then fled in the middle of the night mysteriously. And now that she's older, she has inherited the house from her father. However, she has also grown to be a little bit skeptical of his haunted house stories. So when she returns, a couple of surprises await her. I loved this book. This was so good. It gave me Haunting of Hill House vibes. It was really creepy, really mysterious. There were so many twists. I was like, what? It was amazing. I loved Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. The seventh book that I read in 2020 was The Unleashed by Daniel Vega. I also rated this one 5 out of 5 stars. This is the sequel to her book, The Haunted, and I absolutely adore Daniel Vega's writing. Oh my gosh, Daniel Vega can do no wrong. She has been described as the young adult answer to Stephen King, and this girl can write a horror book. Like, oh my gosh, it's mind-blowing. And for a slow reader, I fly through these. I don't want to say too much about this because it is a sequel, and therefore if someone's interested in it, it would spoil the first book. So I'm just going to say, if you're into horror books and you like a spooky read, especially something about hauntings and ghosts and all the occult stuff, Daniel Vega's your girl. Check this out. So this will be the first book that is not unhauled for 2020. The eighth book that I read in 2020 was The Phantom Prince, My Life with Ted Bundy by Elizabeth and Molly Kendall. I, once again, rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I have one heck of a reading streak. Yeah, look at you, Jane. This is a memoir by Elizabeth Kendall documenting her relationship with the notorious serial killer, Ted Bundy. I've already done a full review on this book that I will link in the description box. And I should mention that if there is a full review on my channel, it will all be linked in the description box. So the description box is your place to go if you want to hear more about these books. The Phantom Prince discusses Elizabeth's relationship with Ted Bundy and about their dynamic and how their relationship ran parallel to the things that he was doing, the attacks, the murders, all that horrific stuff. And I thought it was very, very well done. I thought it was very interesting, insightful. I liked it a lot better than Anne Rule's book on Ted Bundy, The Stranger Beside Me. I highly recommend The Phantom Prince over The Stranger Beside Me. And I also really appreciated how Molly, who was a young girl at the time that Elizabeth and Ted were dating, I loved how they included her insight, and the very end made me just cry, bawl my eyes out, cry. Very scary, but a really, really great book. The next book I read in 2020 was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. It did good this year. Wow, Jane, a lot of 5 out of 5s, yeah. I also believe that this is a Goodreads Choice Award for one of the best books of 2020. And man, I agree with that. I read this for Reese's Book Club, and oh my gosh, this was one of the best books that I have read. Such a Fun Age is also a family drama. Alex Chamberlain hires a woman to be a babysitter for her daughter. And one night when Amira is babysitting due to an emergency, she brings the child to a supermarket to go hang out for a little bit. However, then a woman calls the police on them, and the whole incident is filmed. This book basically explores the aftermath and the changing dynamic because of that incident. I thought this was so beautiful. I thought it was very different from anything that I've read before. I thought it was so well executed, beautifully written. I love this book. I absolutely adored this book. It was so different than anything I've read before. And so therefore, I am going to keep this one on my bookshelves. The 10th book that I read in 2020 was The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I rated this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about a girl whose aunt went missing years and years ago. And as she searches for her aunt, her own story starts to unravel. This book was really different. It had a very noir, Hitchcock type of vibe. It was one of those like old mystery movies. I really, really enjoyed it. It did have paranormal elements that I personally don't think they necessarily went hand in hand with the rest of the story, but it was very interesting and enjoyable. I don't know whether to make it like shiny or not shiny. Definitely shiny. Yeah, go with shiny. When in doubt, shine on. That's my motto. Gives me a comment, Jane? Oh my gosh. Compliment and comment. There we go. All right. That's more understandable. Ooh, shiny. She's shiny. I see it. I want. I got. Ah. Like way more creepy than I thought for a child's book. Is this a child's book? No, Jane. It's like 400. No child is going to be reading a 400-page book, Jane. Young adult. How about a young adult book? There we go. The third book that I read in 2020 was Behind Closed Door. Closed? Ooh, geese. Geese flying. Incoming! It's looking more beat up the more times I shoot this. So sadly, I will be unhauling this one. Smack me in the face on the way out. Oh, that's what you get for throwing books around, Jane. That's what you get. I was getting all bent up now, all twisty. Oh well, someone else will love it still. Just like me, bent and twisty, but someone will love me. I've already done a I've done a feudal system. Lady Jane and their feudal system. More Reese's Book Cub. No, Cub. Cougar and Cub, Jane.